Always got the vibe, got the vibe, got the vibe, got
All right, currently reporting from a construction site because my bankroll is under construction. Actually, that's not true. That's just a lame joke to start this video. I also got one of these fancy new mics. Let me know how it sounds. If it's terrible, too bad. But no, the reason we're here today is to talk about a few sessions I played last week at Hustler. If you missed my last video, the year has been going pretty damn good so far. Up a bunch of money until around mid-March. I was up like 100 or 150K. Pretty sweet start to the year, needless to say. But of course I jinxed it or cursed it or whatever by saying that. And so here we are having to make this video about these past 2 days I played at Hustler. Things did not go very well, as you can tell from the title. Spoilers are out of the way, but we're gonna dive exactly into how that happened and decisions I made, things that I could have done differently, etc. I can't just be making videos about, you know, winning and running good and all that. I'm trying to keep it real with you guys, show all the ups and downs, as has been the case on this channel for its entire existence, contrary to popular belief. I know some of you guys think I only post the winning sessions, but today will prove otherwise. So without any more mumbling and feeling bad about myself, let's get into some hands from last, I believe it was Wednesday and Friday, or maybe last Thursday and Friday. Either way, high stakes at Hustler Casino Live. Let's get into the hands.
Put your all in it. Place your angle on the page, release tension on the tape.
All right, guys, here we are once again. Today we're going to start with this 50-50 game that I put together, which quickly turned into a 50-50-100 game as we all agreed to keep the straddle on. In the first interesting hand, Pepe opens the action to 1400 from the small blind, and I look down at pocket jacks in the straddle. A great hand, especially in position, so I make it 5,000 to go. But then when it gets back around to Pepe, he decides that's not quite enough and bumps it back up to $17,000. Interesting spot here with jacks. He's got 35K behind, so he's put in like a third of his stack already. I think that means if we go all in, he's not going to fold any hand, so we have none of what is called fold equity. We also have position, so I think the best clear play here is to just call and play a flop, see what happens after the cards come out. But instead, I decide to jam all in. In the moment, I was thinking, well, pocket jacks is a good hand, and Pepe does get out of line sometimes. So either we've got the winner, or even if he's got me beat, happy to give Pepe action. Looking back, I don't really hate this play either, honestly, but I think a call would have been better. And I'm not just saying that because we're up against pocket queens this time. Either way, we still have an okay chance of winning, right? As you guys can see on the screen, it only says 4%. That's because their program is accounting for cards folded, and it seems that 2 people have folded a jack already, so it will be impossible for me to hit a set. Looking for a straight to win this one, and it does not come on either board. So we start off the night with losing a 100K pot and 50K going over to Pepe in profit. Not the best start. As if that hand wasn't lame enough, check this one out. I open the action of $300 with ace-4 suited, get a bunch of calls before Dylan jams all in for 9K. Back to me now, and of course with ace-4, folding is more than okay against an all-in. But number one, it's only 9K, which of course is a lot of money, but in this game it's not a whole lot. But more importantly, it's up against Dylan. Now, Dylan is one of the coolest dudes who plays on stream, and he often gets kind of whacked in these games. He runs really bad. He's had some tough spots. So I'm happy to give Dylan as much action as I can, especially when he's come to play a game that I have put together myself. So I make the call, knowing we're probably not in the best shape. But it turns out, even though we're up against ace-10, which is a significantly better hand, we actually chop this one as it comes king jack 6 9-9, which means that neither of our kickers are playing. We both have ace high with a pair of 9s out there and then a king and a jack, so best 5-card hand on all that. But for the first time in my entire career, as far as I can remember, I did not notice this and ended up folding a chop without showing my other card. How embarrassing is that? I'm supposed to be a decent player at this point, considering it's been like 4 or 5 years and I'm playing some high stakes. But here I am making a rookie mistake for a good amount of money. This pot was 20K, so not chopping this one definitely hurts. And I look pretty stupid on camera. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Let's move right along to this next one. I open up the action of 300 with pocket 8s. Tito makes the call. Back to Dylan. He makes it 2,000 now from the third blind. I don't think he's squeezing with a bad hand whatsoever. So, of course, pocket 8's probably looking to hit a set, but we are also still beating hands like ace-king and ace-queen and whatnot. So, of course, I make the call in position. Tito makes the call as well, so we go 3 ways to a flop of jack 3-2 with a couple of hearts out there. Dylan starts off with checking, and in my experience, Dylan typically bets when he has an overpair, so I feel like we've likely got him beat at least. So I put in a small bet of $2,000. Of course, our hand could use some protection, but we might be up against a jack from Tito, left to act behind me. So I'm happy to see Tito make the fold. Now I definitely feel like I've got the winner. Dylan makes the call. We could be up against pocket jacks, slow playing, but aside from that, I feel like we're ahead. But then the turn comes to jack of hearts. Interesting card as it puts a potential flush out there, but it also makes pocket jacks even less likely, so I'm not too worried about it now. He could have hands that contain a heart, though, like ace-king with a heart, king-queen with a heart, ace-queen with a heart, these sorts of holdings. So instead of continuing to bet, I decide to check it back and see what he wants to do on the river. Maybe he'll bluff and we win a bigger pot that way. Maybe he will value bet a worse hand. Seems pretty unlikely, but maybe, like pocket 7s or 6s. And of course, maybe he's got us beat, so probably not getting 3 streets from worse with pocket 8s, and we pot control that way. Long-winded explanation, but I check back the turn and we see the 4 of hearts on the river. Expecting Dylan to check almost always, but instead he puts in a perfectly sized bet. 5,000, right around half pot. And this is a difficult spot with pocket 8s. Can't think of too many bluffs aside from, like I said, ace-king or ace-queen with a heart. But it's also questionable how often he would even bluff those hands. He might just check with ace-high, hoping he's got the winner. So considering that I can't think of too many bluffs, I don't know, calling seems really tough. On the other hand, we do have a good bluff catcher. We've got a pocket pair. We've got a heart, which makes flushes less likely. I don't know. He might be betting pocket 10s or pocket 9s this way for some thin value / blocker bet type thing. I mean, I guess it's not that thin a value, but you guys get what I mean. But then we're also getting a really good price. As you guys can see, I am troubled by this bet. We only have to be right like 25% of the time or something like that. So in the end, I end up just making the call. And once again, we are giving money to Dylan as he has the very well played ace-king of hearts for the nut flush. Yeah, we kind of get unlucky, but also find a way to lose more than maybe we could have. So, yeah, those are 3 of the most interesting hands that I played on this particular session. 0 for 3, poor decisions on every single one of them. Let's see if I can turn things around on day 2, which is an even bigger game than this one. All right, here we go. Day 2. In this one, Tom opens up the action. I don't know who Tom is. All I know is I've got king 4 suited. I think it's good enough to re-raise sometimes. Probably don't really want to call and play it multi-way, so that's what I do. I bump it up to 3,600. I guess the 400 was on in this hand, so we're playing quite the big pot this time. 3,600 to go. Tom makes the call, and we go heads up to a flop of ace 9-2 with a few clubs out there. Terrible flop for king 4 of diamonds, but there is an ace, and I re-raised pre-flop, so could probably get away with a bet. I think checking also makes sense, but this time I bet 2,400. Tom makes the call, and we see the queen of spades on the turn. After he makes the call on the flop, I'm not really loving the situation, so I decided to just wave the white flag. Probably could have some better hands to bluff with, so I just check back. River's the 5 of hearts, and now this is where the hand gets a little weird as Tom leads out for a pot-sized bet, 14,000. And this just feels odd to me. I felt like if he had an ace, he would have just checked on the river, most likely. Don't really see much value in betting top pair. But of course, this is just me overthinking it. As you guys can see, he's just got a good top pair with a good kicker, and he's just betting. It's not rocket science. But here I am in my own head, in my own ego world, trying to come up with a way to win this one. And I'm looking at the board thinking, well, there are potential missed flush draws. There are some potential missed backdoor straight draws. I mean, not many, if we're being honest. But, of course, in the moment, I don't know what he's got. You know, he might have like 8-7 of spades or 10-8 of spades, you know, Jack 10 of clubs. All these sorts of holdings that we could potentially beat. And I feel like this bet represents 2 pair or better, which is hard to make. So not having any clubs, not having any spades, I decide to put in the hero call with king high, thinking it would be pretty sweet to win this one, but it would be equally stupid to lose it, and that's what happens here. Once again, what I think is kind of close spot, and I make the wrong decision. Even if it's not a close spot, I made the wrong decision again. Tough vlog to put together today. This is a perfect example of me just trying to force it too much instead of letting the game come to me. Something I'm definitely victim to sometimes, or rather guilty of, I guess is a better way to say that. But anyway, let's move on. The night is young. Plenty of big pots to come. Let's see if we can turn it around. In this one, Tan opens to 500. Tito calls in the big blind, and I am in the straddle with 6 deuce suited. Getting a good price. I don't know about this one. We are suited, but it's kind of a terrible hand. Either way, I complete, and we go 3 ways to a flop of 8, 4, deuce with 1 heart out there. We've got bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw. And as far as I know, that's a decent candidate to bluff with, especially on a board that should generally favor me since I called from the straddle. So when Tito leads out into the field from the big blind for 1,000, I decide to spring on this right away. I feel like if he had a really strong hand, he probably would start with a check and maybe try to check raise or, set up some sort of trap. So I think this indicates most likely a top pair type of holding. And I think with top pair, it's going to be tough to hold on versus multiple streets of firepower. So I make it 3,500 to go. Tan gets out of there with his ace king, and Tito makes the call right away with top pair, great kicker. Turn card is the queen of spades. Tito checks, and well, if I had 2 pair or a set, I would be blasting, and that's what I'm trying to represent here, so I do the same thing. 8,000 into 8,600. A pot-sized bet. Tito makes the call. That's not good, but what do you know? We hit 2 pair on the river. There's another good thing about bluffing is sometimes you actually get there. Always pretty sweet. Interestingly enough, though, Tito now leads out for $12,000. And even though I think we'd likely have the winner, I'm not sure if we can get value from a raise in this situation. It seems like I might be putting myself in a spot where only a better hand calls me if I raise. Even though I do like to go for thin value from time to time, I kind of just wanted to win a pot too. And, maybe the past few hands, the previous day has you second guessing yourself and you don't want to get too crazy. So on other days, I might consider a raise. This day, I just call. And we end up winning versus Tito's king 8 offsuit. We get lucky. Seems like maybe that's the only way we can win. Let's see if we can build on this momentum and keep things going the right direction. And what better hand to do that with than ace queen suited? In this one, there's a raise to 500, a call, and then Tito makes it 1,400. It's on me on the button. I've got a premium. I make it 3,600. Trying to play heads up against Tito. But that's not what ends up happening as Tom makes the call again with his pocket fives. Tito makes the call as well. So we're going 3 ways to a flop, which comes down amazing for my hand. It's queen 10-3 with 2 clubs. That's top pair, top kicker, and the nut flush draw, plus a backdoor straight draw if you want to get fancy. So when it checks to me, I bet what amount? $3,800 it looks like. Tom gets out of the way with his fives, and now Tito makes the call. He's got the same hand as me, but just without the flush draw, so we are doing the old, what you call free roll. Turn card is not great, though. It's the 10 of hearts. Generally going to be better for him than for me, since he would be playing a 10 on the flop that way, and I would not really be betting a 10 too often. So when he checks, I check it back. Not necessarily expecting him to have a 10 all that often, but I just think checking back this turn card is a good idea. Could also catch some bluffs on the river. But then it comes to king of spades, which is just so lame because one of the most obvious hands that we'd be up against is king jack. Of course, there's also king queen, even ace king once in a blue moon that doesn't want to get too out of line pre-flop. So yeah, I'm just not loving this card whatsoever, and even more so once Tito leads out now for $7,000. So lame. I mean, yeah, we've got a good hand, could bluff catch, but then again, what bluffs are we even expecting him to have? We are, of course, still losing to a 10 or any slow played monster like pocket threes or queen 10 suited, for example, even though there is only one possibility of queen 10 suited, but you guys know what I mean. There's also king 10. I don't know. I'm just not loving this spot. I feel like either decision I make is going to be close. And in the end, I decide to fold. Couldn't think of any bluffs. And it turns out he's not bluffing. He's got the old ace-queen. That means it was another chop that we don't get half of because I folded my cards again. This time I actually knew what was going on, though. I just made the wrong choice. Again, what else is new? Let's move on to the next hand. Here I pick up ace-6 offsuit in the straddle, folds all the way to Tito, who limps in, and I decide to raise it up since, we've got ace high, blind versus blind. I make it $700 and Tito makes the call. We go to a flop of queen 10 deuce rainbow. He checks, I bet, he makes the call. That ain't good, but the turn comes a 6 of spades, which means we've got a pair. I think I should have continued bluffing in this instance because Tito's check call on the flop likely indicates at least a 10, maybe a queen. Sure, he could have a deuce sometimes, but it is a raised pot, so how often really? So yeah, I think having a 6 now is a good idea to continue blasting with, but I kind of chicken out and check it back. And then we see the queen of spades on the river, which is not bad. But now Tito leads out again, $4,800, and man, does it just look like he has a 10 all day here. Most people don't bluff paired boards, especially on the river. He knows he's likely going to get called, but then again, we are beating hands like Jack 9 or King Jack. I mean, he probably would have raised King Jack pre-flop, so I'm kind of discounting that. I don't think he'd limp in with a hand like that. So really just looking to beat like Jack 9, Jack 8, maybe 9-8, these sort of like gutters on the flop that brick out. So yeah, we're getting a good price. This time I do toss in the call. Don't want to fold a chop again or something. But we end up winning as he's got 9-8 of diamonds, which is a missed straight draw that tries to steal it on the river. Fortunately, we make the right choice this time, but it's not for enough to get us even close to out of the hole. We only pick up $10,000 in profit here. Let's see if we can keep it going. One right decision perhaps will lead to many more of them. In this one, I raise to 500 with 7-4 of diamonds in late position before it gets around to Will in the third blind, who raises, but he makes it super small, 1,600. Barely over 3 times my original raise, and he's out of position. We're also fairly deep, not, crazy, but there is a good amount of money left to play for as he's got like $50,000 and I cover him. So even though I know we've got the losing hand at this exact moment, if we hit anything good and he's got an over pair, we have a chance of winning a bunch of money. So with that in mind, I make the call and we go to a flop, which is finally what we've been looking for. 7-4-3 with a few hearts out there. We've got top 2 pair on a super draw heavy board. Will continues betting small, which I'm not sure I love on a board like this. $1,500, and of course there are a plethora of hands that I would be raising as a bluff here. So of course with a hand as strong as top 2, I should be doing the same thing. At least that's what I think. I make it 5,500 to go, and this is where the hand gets really weird as Will decides to put in another raise, but it's a small raise, 13,500. I've got no idea what's going on at this point. Did this guy flop a set? Did he re-raise pre-flop with 6-5 suited and flop the nuts? Are we getting cooler again? I don't know. What I do know is I've got top 2 pair, and I'll be damned if I fold this one in this spot. So I make the call in position. Don't really see much merit to doing anything besides that. And we see a good card on the turn. It's the Jack of Clubs. Unless he's got pocket jacks, I guess, we should still be in good shape or really bad shape. Nothing really changes on this turn card is what I'm trying to say, I think. But now he goes all in for a little over pot, 34.5 it looks like. And, well, I mean, I'm not going to fold. Let's just skip the analysis. I make the call, and I'm happy to see we are up against pocket kings. So we're definitely in some good shape here. 82% to win this one. We decide to run it just one time, so trying to dodge a king, a jack, or a 3. And the river's a king. That's rough. That's a tough one. Not just because of the money. It's never fun to lose $50,000. But mainly because it finally felt like the start of a momentum shift. And maybe we were on our way to having a great session. But then this hand goes down. And we are suddenly stuck a bunch, like $50,000 on the day. I was right around even when this hand started. Not so anymore. We reload some chips. Time to get back to work. And the hand we are getting back to work with is right here. Queen 9 of spades. In this one, Tito raises to 1,100, and I re-raise to 3,500. Queen 9 suited is probably not a hand you want to play multi-way, but heads up, from time to time is all right. I think even folding would be okay. I know that sounds ridiculous and boring, so let's not dive too deep into that. I make it 3,500 this time, and Tito makes the call, so we get a good situation. Going heads up, in position with a pretty hand. And we flop a flush draw plus 2 overs. It's 7-5-5 with a couple of spades. Interestingly enough, now Tito leads out. He's got top pair, so I guess it makes some sense. 2,000 into the pot, and I just call. Could raise sometimes, could call, of course. This time I picked the chill option, and we sort of get there on the turn. I don't really know because I'm not sure what Tito's got, but we do hit top pair. It's the 9 of diamonds. 6-8 does get there, though. That's the most obvious straight draw on the flop, I think. Kind of worried about that, so when Tito bets 5,000, once again, I don't see any point besides just calling. River card looks good to me. It's the Queen of Diamonds. Even though we do make top 2, though, I don't really think it makes much difference because I suspect the 9 was either already beating his hands or we were in trouble all along. But now Tito checks, so I feel like we've got the winner. Kind of tough to get value from worse, but I'm going to try. I put in 2/3 the size of the pot, 14.4K. And after some thought, Tito decides I might be full of it. Maybe I missed spades. He makes the call, and he's right. I did miss spades, but I did not miss the top 2 pair, and we win this one. $50,000 pot going our way. This one definitely feels good, considering how the night has been going so far. In this next one, I raise up the action to 1,000 with 8-6 offsuit. And let's just pause here and admire how incredibly bad that is. There's really just no reason to be playing 8-6 off. We're even playing the stand-up game, and I already have a marker, which means that I'm safe from paying the bounty. Don't really know what's going on here. It's probably just pent-up tilt and frustration from the past 48 hours not being able to be in Profitville, if you will. So, again, just a perfect example of me trying to force it a little too much. But then again, 8-6 offsuit, you can make some hands. Maybe that'll happen this time. We go to a flop 3 ways versus Brown Ball and Will. Comes Ace, Jack, 6 with 2 hearts. We've got bottom pair, but what I'm really thinking is no one can have pocket aces. No one can have pocket jacks since, I didn't get re-raised pre-flop. And since we've got a 6, I'm not too worried about pocket 6s. With that in mind, I think no one's going to be super strong on this kind of board, and I think it's a good candidate to start bluffing. I know it sounds a little bit ridiculous, and honestly, I wouldn't blame you. I think it is a little ridiculous, but that's what's going through my mind as I bet 2,000. Brown Baller makes the call. He's first to act. I guess what I'm trying to say is he goes before Will, so this is a little bit frightening. But of course, Brown Ball is on the button, and he could be calling with all sorts of stuff. So he tosses in the 2K, and now Will makes the call as well. Turn card is bad. It's the Ace of Clubs, pairing the top card. Most likely someone's got an ace, so Will checks. This time I just check and give up. And now Brown Ballo puts in a bet of $3,000. Pretty small bet. Will makes the call, which I think indicates either jack or some sort of flush draw or straight draw. And now it's on me, and some evil thoughts start to cross my mind. And those evil thoughts are, well, like I said on the flop, no one can have aces, no one can have jacks. And most likely, if anyone has pocket 6s, it's going to be me. So I decide to turn my hand into a bluff and try to get one of these guys to fold an ace. Most likely, I think Brown Ball has got an ace, since he's the one betting and Will is just calling. And I think Brown Ball is a good player and would be capable of folding an ace, not necessarily on the turn, but perhaps if we go for gusto on the river. Seems a little bit crazy, and honestly it is. It's kind of a kamikaze idea. But if he's got a hand like ace 10, for example, maybe even a small suited ace, I guess the kicker doesn't matter a whole lot. I do think he's capable of realizing that I'm likely to have a full house, and he might fold trips, so I decide to go for it. I check raise up to 14,000, and I guess in my defense, this is how I would play a hand like pocket 6s or ace 6 suited for that matter. And if I'm going to play those hands this way, it seems, a little weird, but I am going to have to also come up with bluffs to balance that stuff out. And I think having a 6 is an okay candidate to do it with. Probably better to have a jack or maybe even jack 6 suited in a perfect world. But this time we've just got the 6. It's going to have to be good enough. I make it 14K to go. Brown Baller calls, and we go to a river, which is an 8. We end up with 3 pair, but of course that's no good because something about poker and you can't have 3 pairs. I don't know. What I do know is Brown Balla at this point I think has an ace more than likely, and we're going to have to try and get him to fold that. So I jam all in. I would be doing the same thing with a full house, and we get snap called. What I did not want to run into is ace jack. That's the one hand that might play this way pre-flop, and of course is the nuts now. And that's what Brown Balla has got. So this is just an absolute disaster of a hand. Not only was it unnecessary from me from the jump, 8-6 offsuit, don't need to really open that pre-flop, don't need to bet the flop, don't need to check raise the turn, and definitely don't need to try to win this one on the river. I mean, not only is all that true, but of course running into ace jack is a little bit unfortunate as well. So I make brown ball his life pretty easy here. He picks up a bunch of money with the nuts. Easy game for him, and here I am in my own head, just fighting my own demons. Let's move right along, and there is more poker to be played. And by more poker, I mean this time I've got ace jack. I'm in the 400 straddle this time. Is Sean Limpson, aka Brown Balla, for those of you who don't know his real name, Tito Limpson as well, and I think my hand is worthy of a raise in this situation against two limpers. Even though we don't have position, ace jack is still a pretty damn good hand, so I make it $2,000 to go. Brown Balla calls, and Tito calls as well, so we go three ways to a flop, which is kind of in theme with the whole night. 6-6-3, not much going on for me, but considering that these guys limp called, they're not going to be too strong very often, so I think checking is fine. This time I decide to bet and see what happens. 2100 in there. Sean gets out of the way, but Tito makes the call. Turn card's the 8 of diamonds, and well, I check back the flop, so Tito might be bluffing with a bunch of stuff. He puts in 5,000 bucks. I'm not going to fold. I make the call. River is the 9 of spades. I think we might still have the winner, but now Tito leads out for 9,000, which is just under half pot. Brutal. He could be doing this with any pocket pair, any 6, any 3, any 8, any 9, any river straight, all sorts of stuff that beat us. But at the same time, he might be bluffing. Maybe he's got like queen high or jack high, and he just started bluffing after I checked back the flop. I don't know. It's close again. And you know what makes this game so much easier is when you actually hit strong hands, or at least decent hands. And when you don't have bottom pair and ace high and counterfeit 2 pair. But enough whining, it's time to make a decision, and I decide to not punt any more money. Not feeling it this time. Don't want a hero call with ace high and be wrong after, how the night has been going. So I let it go. And we promptly realize that we got owned by jack 7 offsuit. A great play from Tito. A somewhat okay play from me. Honestly, I can't really hate folding ace high on this kind of board, but again, wrong choice, wrong decision, and the pot is going the wrong direction. In this one, I raise it to 500 with pocket 8s. Rampage makes the call, and then Victor goes all in for $10,000. Interesting now, when Tom makes the call for 10,000, that's kind of weird. I feel like if he had a hand like ace king or ace queen, he might re-raise the 10,000 and try to isolate Tom's all in. So when it gets back to me, I don't want to fold, but I don't really want to raise in fear that Tom might be trapping with aces or kings. I think he's clever enough to know that it's probably more profitable for him to call with those hands pre-flop right now and hope that I put in another raise, maybe thinking that Tom looks weak and then he traps me perfectly. But once again, as you guys can see, this is just me in my own head overthinking things because he's just got ace jack suited and is trying to see a flop. I should have re-raised, I guess, but instead we go three ways to a flop of 9-6-5. Not too bad for pocket 8s at all. So when Tom checks, I think our hand could use some protection. Put in a bet of $8,000. Tom folds right away, so we are heads up versus Victor, the player who's all in. I let him know we've got 8s, and it looks like that's good news for us because he says it's good. We run it twice and end up holding on both boards versus his pocket 3s. And finally, we win a somewhat straightforward pot, pocketing $21,000 in the process, but not nearly enough to get us out of the hole. See if we can keep things going the right way. The night is still semi-young. Maybe we'll get our money back and end up winning. Let's see. All right, so I think the solution to all this dilemma is to play 3 high. That's what I'm doing here. I got 3 deuce of diamonds. I raise it to 500, and Tan puts in a re-raise from the small blind to 2,000. Now, this is somewhat similar to the Will situation earlier when he had pocket kings, where the raise feels a little small to me. And considering that Tan has been pretty straightforward all night, I think it's obvious we've got the losing hand. I mean, that's a fact. We've got 3 high. We have to have the losing hand. But what I'm trying to say is if we hit something good, we can potentially win a big pot versus Tan's, potential overpair, if that's what he's got here. So I make the call, and we go to a flop, which doesn't look too bad. It's 9-7-5 with a diamond out there. And all the cards are red, and I've got 2 red cards. So at first glance, it can't be that bad, right? Tan checks it over to me now, which I think is a good play on a board like this. And, he might have ace king, ace queen, all these over cards. He might even have an over pair. That's not going to love this kind of board. So I start with a bet of 1,300 bucks. Tan makes the call though, so I think he's definitely got at least something. But then the turn comes a 4 of spades, which I think is the perfect card to continue bluffing on. I could easily have all sorts of stuff on this board considering the pre-flop action. I opened and then called a raise in position. Earlier I did that with 7-4. As you guys can see, there's a 7 and a 4 on the flop or on the board right now. 8-6 is a straight, 2 pair, sets, all sorts of potential good hands I might have here. So I think continuing to bet makes sense. 5,000 this time. Tan makes a call again, which is certainly concerning. Probably going to shut it down if the river is a bad card. But then it comes the 8 of hearts, which is not that bad. I mean, this might be similar to that Dylan hand earlier, where he was just checking the nut flush draw all along, and now Tan has got there. But again, if Tan's got an overpair or just any sort of single pair holding, he's going to hate this card, and I just can't help myself. We've got 3 high, and even though giving up on pots is okay sometimes when the situation calls for it, I don't think this is one of those situations. Any 6 is now a straight. The flush has gotten there, and I might still be going for value with sets and, well, maybe not 2 pair, but, you know, if he's got an overpair, I would still be going for value with all sorts of stuff, and I think that opens the door for me to continue trying to steal this pot. So I put in about a 14,400. Trying to make it look like I've got something good. As you guys can see, my hand's not that good. It's still 3 high, which is kind of crazy considering the turn card. You know, we were open-ended. We could hit a pair. We could hit a straight. We could hit, well, that's about it. But still, we've only got 3 high now. Tan, as you guys can see, has rivered a set, which in this exact case, I don't think is great for him. I don't envy his spot whatsoever. It's tough to think of a hand that he beats, to be honest, but then again, I have been losing all night, and sometimes, you guys know how it is at the poker table, you just smell blood in the water, and I am confident that this was one of those situations when Tan ends up making the call. I feel like if I had been winning all night and, you know, playing solid, Tan would have easily gotten away from this one, but tonight is not one of those nights. He makes the call, and it is a very tough call, but a correct call nonetheless, and that ends the interesting hands for me on this night. We end up losing this $45,000 hand to end things, and I guess I should just be appreciative that it's over. Not my finest night by any means, I'm sure you guys can realize that, but just want to keep it real with you guys and show you both the ups and the downs. So as always, I hope you enjoyed the hands.
Right, so as you guys can see, I didn't play very well, I didn't run very well, and when you combine those two things along with playing high stakes for a lot of money, you're typically going to lose a good amount of dollars, and that's what happened to me. Between both days, I lost around 200K, which is pretty brutal. I mean, I don't play games that I can't afford the swings in, but that's still not very fun to swing 200K in the wrong direction. On the bright side, the year is young, so we'll see how this turns out by December. I'll check in with you guys then, and hopefully we have some positive results. If not, then I have a losing year in poker and life goes on, right? But hopefully it doesn't come to that. Another good thing is that I am playing again at Hustler, and the games are typically good, and things have gone fairly well for me there, so no need to panic. That's all I gotta say today. Before I sign off, actually, we put all the videos on my channel into playlists, so if you wanna watch all the videos from Hustler, all the videos from Vegas, Morongo, etc., even the Lodge, you guys can check the channel. There are playlists that are gonna allow you guys to watch those videos more easily, and we'll be updating those as we go along. I'm also going to Vegas sometime pretty soon. Gonna be playing some games there and vlogging as well, so stay tuned for that. For those of y'all who like the Vegas videos, got a few of those coming up. But that's enough talking today. As always, thank you guys for the support. Hopefully bring you guys some better news soon. And as always, good luck at the tables. Until next time, peace.